and we'll get going. Okie dokie. So as you can see, today we're going to continue our conversation about organic modeling. We're basically going to pick up right where we left off last week and talk about how to create an object that we then can ultimately sculpt. So we're still going to follow the rough production pipeline that we were looking at last week. We create a base mesh, and then we take that base mesh into the Paint tab or the Sculpting tab, and we start going crazy with it with all of our sculpting tools. This is a really, really popular, prolific pipeline that you'll see out there in the real world. Okay, doesn't matter if you're a Luxology user, an Autodesk user, a Houdini user. We make a base mesh, then we send it to a sculpting app or use sculpting tools to infuse a high level of detail within the mesh itself. Okay, so we're going to continue this conversation today. Okay. We're going to focus on making the base mesh because, as you probably experienced last week with all the sculpting tools, you understand now the importance of having quad polygons across the entirety of your surface. The sculpting tools behave a little bit more predictably and will give you stronger results if the surface is constructed at a quads. It also allows us to jump into a new world called multi-resolution sculpting, and we'll talk a little bit about that as we get towards the latter half of today's class. Okay? This is going to be a challenge for you guys, okay? This is not going to look like a human body at the end of this process, okay? You're going to look at this and you're going to have the exact same instinctual reaction as you did to the final result of your hand, where you go, yeah, that doesn't look like a human hand. It's going to look a little off, okay? This is normal. This is expected, okay? Organic modeling is tough, okay? It takes a tremendous amount of concerted effort and study to understand the nuance of organic modeling to capture all the specific fine details of a character. Today's conversation is going to give you that foundation, because if we design and construct our model correctly, we can have we'll generate a shape that's highly, highly, highly editable. So if you need to go in and start moving things around, you're not going to have to worry about infusing n-gons or triangles or really screwing up your polygonal flow and topology. Okay? We want to build our object with some basic, simple shapes, but in addition, we also want to build them according to reference as well. All of our characters must be built with reference. I've provided you guys with the exact same reference that you see within the feature image of our course page. Let's just jump into it, the Advanced Organic Modeling section. If you look in the Homework tab, there we go. You can see down at the bottom here, I've provided you guys with some really cool samples of some successful student projects. And this is kind of the level of detail and the quality that we're striving to complete this week. Okay? It's going to be a little bit of a challenge. The most difficult part in this process is going to be the head and the feet, as you'll see here momentarily. The polygonal flow in both of those areas changes. Okay? So we need to look at those. We're not going to capture a whole lot of detail on the head this week. I could spend 8 weeks talking about how to model the human head. It really is the most complex shape you'll ever strive to make. Okay, it is tough. It is very, very tough. I mean, shoot, just the ears themselves is like a 3-week instructional process. That's not something we just can do. You know, there's some intelligent design that's required to make that work. Okay, it's going to look kind of funky. Okay, it's going to look like a little wooden character rather than a fully articulated, super detailed human character that could pop into the next Pixar film. Okay, the folks that are doing the character design and the actual modeling for these big films, those are guys and gals that have 20 years experience doing character design and character art. Okay, it is something that just takes a lot of work and a lot of effort. Is it impossible? No, not impossible at all. It just is not as easy as one would think it is. Okay. There is no make me a character button inside of Modo. So we've got to focus on the foundation level techniques that will kind of get you into that, onto that path. Okay. All right. Let's kind of jump in and take a look at the reference images that I've given you guys. You'll find in the resources tab, the lab section, there's the link to the zipped archive that contains the reference images that you're going to need to use to build this character. So we're building this 3D model right here. Everyone's going to build the exact same shape. All right. I mentioned earlier that I'm giving you guys a softball pitch for the lab. The lab assignment this week is the alignment of all the reference images to each other and to our three-dimensional scene. So if you're following along and aligning the reference images with me here in a minute, you'll be done with your lab. Okay, then you just do file save as, upload it to Dropbox, and you're done. Okay, it's the easiest lab assignment we have all semester. Okay, so you can get a jump start on this today if you're following along. In addition, if you're following along, you'll also be able to get a jump start on the base mesh of your model. We're not going to have time to go through the entire process today, but we are going to talk about the important big picture ideas, okay? Specifically, connecting appendages to the torso of our character, okay? The connection sequence, if you will, the technique is very similar to one another, so we're going to be focusing on that idea and technique and principle above all else. Okay, let's do it. Let's just jump in and start making our first character. All right, let's get rid of the calendar. And let's open up the good old Modo. Now, I've already gone ahead and I've downloaded the human reference. Okay, there's 3 of them. There's 3 images, the front, the top, and the side. Like the other objects that we've modeled this semester, we have to have at least 3 or at least 2 images to work with. Okay, so let's just do it real fast. Let's just load in our backdrop items and we're on our way. Oh, here's kind of a cool little trick. I've got a lot of questions in my office hours the past week about the role of that images tab at the top of the screen, because we have items, we have shader tree, and then we have images. Let me show you this. The images tab, way out over there, it's next to groups. Okay, that images tab is just a place where we can load in a whole bunch of images. It's a great, great, great system. Okay, now mine's being cut off in my interface right now. Or not. Someone's messed around with my layout. Let me reset my layout. There we go. So this is what I'm talking about. So we got items, we got the shader tree, we got our groups, and then we have images. Okay. Whenever you load in a backdrop image into Modo, that window that will pops up when you load in the content of your backdrop image is actually accessing all of the images that are currently stored in this location. Okay, so let's just preload all of our images into our images tab, and I think you'll see what I'm talking about. Let's do add clip, load image. Let's go find the images we want to use. There's one. You can do multiples at the exact same time. I want those 2 now. All right, and this is kind of cool because now we can see a little bit more information about all the images that we're using inside the application. In addition, you can also like double click on any one of these and it'll open that image in its own floating image viewer. This is really kind of nice, especially when you're working with reference or if you want to have an image that you can look at while you're modeling. Load it into the app, double click on it, and then you can have it as a floating palette. I do this all the time because I like having, I like being able to see whatever it is that I'm modeling and then see my model. Okay, I have 2 monitors at home, and this is an excellent thing to do because now I can have this image viewer on my second monitor while I'm going crazy in my model tab. Okay, nice workflow kind of modifier. Since we already have all 3 of these images into the app, let's just jump over to our shader tree, add a backdrop item, and we'll be on our way. Let's be good stewards. I always call this ref, so I know this is reference, and this is going to be the front. If I go into my backdrop tab, if we click on the image section, now we're going to access all the images that are currently stored in that images tab, and check it out. There they all are. Okay, so we select one. This is the front image, so we're going to use the front projection type. Da-da-da! There it is. Let's just keep going here and make another backdrop item. This will be ref side. And I'll load in the side backdrop image. And I'm going to change my projection type to right. I have no idea if that's correct. We'll check that here in a minute. And then last but certainly not least, let's get the top flowing in there. Fantastic. And of course, the projection type is also going to be set to type. I see people over in the lab constantly forgetting to change the projection type. I'm sorry, it's getting cut off here. I see people constantly forgetting to change the projection type, okay? You should only in very few circumstances need to rotate your backdrop items. Projection type is going to do 90% of the work for you 95% of the time, okay? All right, so let's figure out what we need to do now to align all of these images to each other. Let's just do it. All right, so I'm going to use the front backdrop image as the master image within my scene. So what am I going to do to my front since it's the master? Nothing? Let's revise that. Very little. The things that I normally check is to ensure that the front is positioned correctly within inside the three-dimensional scene itself. So I'm aligning it to the grid. Okay? It's really the only image within inside of our workflow that we try to align to the grid. Everything's going to be aligned to it. So if I go into my front backdrop image, I'm going to increase the transparency here. Here we go. And now we can see the grid indicators behind our image. And yeah, I'm pretty close. I think I'm pretty much dialed. But it's something that we need to look at before we go any further. Okay, so I'm looking pretty good. It's centered right there on the x-axis, and I'm a happy camper. All right. Now, one other thing that we could do if we really wanted to was to position the feet of our backdrop item maybe on the center of the y-axis. You don't have to do it, but I've seen people do that, and that's a perfectly good way of working. The most important axes that we need to dial in here is the center of the x-axis, because lo and behold, like many other things, I'm going to try to do only half of the work. I'm only going to model half of our body. Last time I checked, human beings, for the most part, are symmetrical. The left side is the exact same as the right side, except for me, because I have one big ear and one small ear, and that drives me crazy. You know, why do I have to have one like sticking out and the other one's like kind of flat like that? I don't get that. I guess the universe was just trying to play a cruel joke on me. You know, anyways, so we're going to model this symmetrically. So we're only going to do one half. So the x-axis is an important element for us. All right. So I'm good. I'm looking good here. All right. Now that we've got the front kind of dialed in where we need it to be, let's start looking at our side backdrop image. And I've assigned it to the projection type of right. So if we jump into our right orthographic viewport, we can make some really important decisions here. Now the first thing that we have to do is what? You got it. I love it. And I think the big general picture idea here is that we need to make sure that it's orientated to the same direction as the front, right? And we want the front of our character, so the nose, facing which direction? Or be a little bit more specific. Right and left is relative based on which, Positive Z. Okay, now, what inside of my universe here tells me the orientation and current direction of the positive Z values of the Z axis? Huh?
It shows on the screen that it's pointing towards negative Z.
How do you know that?
Because it says negative Z.
You got it. So, yeah, no, it seems obvious, but that's what we're after, okay? We want to make sure that we just double check the indicators on the side of our grid, okay? Modo tells us pretty intelligently, gives us these cool little icons over here, okay? Which direction all of our values are facing within inside this OpenGL viewport. Right now, my character is facing negative Z, right? The nose is pointed towards the negative values of our Z axis. So what do I need to do to this? Flip it, because I want the nose facing the positive Z. Positive Z is always the front, okay? That's the front of our world, is the positive Z. If positive Z is the front, what is up? Positive Y. You got it. You got it. So let's flip this bad boy around and continue working. So let's flip it. There we go. Now our nose is facing the right way. I'm also, while I'm here, just going to lower the transparency. All right. Let's go into our top one and make sure that it's orientated the right direction. And what's the verdict? Yay or nay on this one? Yay. How do we know that? How do we know? Yeah. So it says it down here. And also, I rely on the compass. The compass is what my brain really kind of looks towards, okay? Sometimes, I often, to be honest with you, model without the grid on. So when I'm modeling, I don't necessarily see these, but I absolutely see the compass, and that's usually a good landmark to tell me how or what direction my guy needs to be faced towards. So we're good here. All right. So we've orientated all the images to the right direction within our scene, okay? However, we need to start scaling them to each other to ensure that they're in the proper proportions to each other. How do I do that? You start with the front, absolutely. So we start with our master image, right? Everything begins with our master, which in our case is the front. Now, what are we looking to find here in the front? What are we looking to do? Yeah, we need to define how big it is, right? How tall this character is along the y-axis. So what are we going to generate? Some geometry, some reference planes, and let's just do it. Go into my empty mesh item, fire off the cube tool, and I'm just going to draw out a couple reference planes, okay? And then in my component selection mode, I'm going to move those reference planes right around in there. That's pretty good. And then I'm going to edit, copy, edit, paste, immediately pull out the move tool, and drag that copy down. Now we have some decisions that we have to make down here. The feet and a lot of other areas are going to provide a certain challenge. These are not perfect images, okay? Even though these images obviously were computer generated, they're not good reference images. Why not? Yeah, Alan. It's in perspective, okay? All photographs are going to infuse perspective, are going to include perspective. You can see that perspective with the relationship between the height of the toes and the height of the heels, okay? The heels are, in the photograph, higher than the toes, right? But think about your own feet. Are your heels higher than your toes? 9 times out of 10, actually I'd say probably 9.8 times out of 10. No, they're not. They're the exact same height within inside of your foot, okay? So this is kind of an image that has been infused with perspective. This is something we can't avoid. I specifically chose to include it in these reference photographs because it's important that you guys start learning how to work with this, okay? Reference for organic objects, or especially humans, is tough. Imagine we're on the set of the next, I don't know, the next Thor just came out, so I'm excited about that. How many of you guys saw Thor? Good times, yeah? So I'm a big Marvel guy, and I love all the Marvel movies. I think they're really rad. So maybe you're on the set of the new Thor movie, right? And Industrial Light and Magic has come to set and said, okay, we need to take reference photographs of the actor that played Thor so we can make a digital stunt double of him, right? Because a lot of what you're seeing in those action sequences are not a human character, okay? It's not a stunt. It's not a stunt double. It's a digital stunt double, right? A computer animated character. So they asked, Chris Hemsworth, I think that's the actor's name. They asked Chris to stand like this in what's defined as the T-pose, right? The T-pose is a representation of your object with all the appendages at the extreme, right? Why do we take pictures of our characters like this? Or draw pictures of our characters like this? Hit me. Yeah. Are you scratching or are you... No. None of the above. So why do you think we do this? Yeah, Alan. Why is that important? There it is. It can be easier to model. Absolutely. I did a long time ago when I worked in San Francisco. I did a character that had kind of a Medusa head with a whole bunch of snakes all coiled around her head. How did I model each one of those snakes? Straight out. Okay, the original raw model looked kind of silly because all the snakes were modeled pointing out from her head because it was just easier to model that way. Then after they were modeled, I deformed them and twisted them back up into a little ball on top of her head. Okay, it's easier to model at the T-pose. Okay, it's easier to understand the proportions of our characters at the T-pose. It's a common pose. You'll see it all over the place. Yeah, no, in many ways, yeah, absolutely. It also helps to find all the proportions of our characters pretty easily too, because we can see everything. Nothing's hidden, when it's all balled up. Modeling a character like this is a whole lot easier than modeling a character like that. That'd be tough. That'd be tough. Okay. When we work with reference images, here's what often happens. So you're on the set, the guys at Industrial Light and Magic, they put a camera right in front of Chris Hemsworth, and they say, okay, stand in the T-pose, we're going to take a picture of you so we can make your digital stunt double. And they go, click, they take a picture, and then the guys at ILM say, okay, Chris, don't move. Okay, because then they physically grab their camera, they move their tripod to the side so they can take the side image, right? And then they take another picture of Chris, right? Or they ask Chris to change his body position. So if the camera is right where that post is, maybe they take a picture of my front, and then they say, okay, Chris, move 90 degrees. Click, take another picture, right? What has happened in between this picture and this picture? I've moved, okay? Even if the camera moved to a different location, I've taken a breath, okay? Maybe I've relaxed my muscles one way. My hands, holding out your hands like this is actually kind of tough, okay? My shoulders are starting to hurt, and I've only been doing it for like 30 seconds, okay? I'm not out of shape. So people's arms are going to start to lower as they stand there, okay? The reference images are always going to infuse these kinds of discrepancies, even when you're working with concept art, okay? Drawing characters in the T-pose is not an easy thing to do for concept artists. So there's going to be some small discrepancies between the form, between the images, okay? As always, our references are guides, okay? They are guidelines for how this object should look. In every sense, we need to use our artistic capacity to continue to define the shape as we start to build it. Perspective and just the human nature of these photographs are going to generate some issues. So we need to make some decisions on our guy as to where we're going to put this reference plane inside of our scene. I think I'm going to put it at the heel because I can see the heel really easily, and in every sense, that's going to give me a true definition of the bottom, okay? All right, so the top of this cube represents the bottom of our heels. The bottom of this cube represents the top of our head. Two important landmarks that we need to take over when we're working with these reference planes in our side image. So let's go to my right, and I'm simply going to extrude those two reference planes and then center them along the z-axis. There we go. All right, so looking at what we can see here, what do I need to do to my side reference photograph? Make it smaller, okay? The head is kind of right where it needs to be, but the heel is nowhere close to that edge right there, okay? So I need to make this image a little bit smaller, a lot smaller actually. So I want to scale it a little bit, then move it up. Still need to scale it. Too much. Oops. Yeah, that's good enough for me. I'm happy with that. And now we're really close. We're kind of right in there. Okay. Okay, so there we go. The front image and the side image are now aligned to each other, but now we need to dial in that top image. So what types of features in the front photograph are we absolutely going to be able to see in the top image? The hands, and specifically what feature of the hands? Yeah, the tips of the fingers. Yeah, I think that's a good direction to head in. So I'm going to use my existing reference planes here, so these two fillers. And I'm going to rotate them 90 degrees and position them where they need to be in the front image. Maybe right around there. There we go. Same with this guy. There we go. All right. So let's go look at our image from the top, and what do we need to do to our top image? Make it smaller. Somewhere right around there, and I'm happy with that. All right, looking good. Looking real good. Let's go to perspective and take a gander at what we've accomplished here. Yeah, that's starting to look pretty fantastic. Huh? Yeah, just use those reference planes. Use the reference planes, okay? Now, whenever you generate a backdrop item, it's automatically going to generate that item at the origin of our scene. Well, we have 3 backdrop items, so we have 3 images that are all at the origin. It's kind of difficult right now to see my model, and let's just put some geometry in there. Okay, there's my little cube. Even with overlay drawing on, and overlay down here, even with overlay, it's really difficult to see my little model just chilling there at the origin of our scene, right? So what can we do to make this better? Because this is going to confuse my brain. I'm not going to be able to understand the shape of my model when I have a whole lot of reference images kind of on top of it. I love it. You're absolutely right, Mr. Pryor. We're going to use our transform tools and push these reference images away from the origin. We need to be careful, however, as to what axes we're going to push these images along, right? Because we've just spent a tremendous amount of time aligning these images with inside of our three-dimensional scene. We can't screw that up. So what's my trick? We've talked about this before. How can we know beyond any reasonable doubt that the transformation we do to these backdrop images isn't going to mess up the alignment phase we just completed? Let's jump into the front photograph and take a look at what our application is telling us. Let's change my perspective here to front. There we go. All right. So here's my, my guy. All right. Now, if you think about it, ultimately what we've done here is that we've aligned this character from the front along which two axes? X and Y, left, right, up and down, right? So which axes haven't we touched this character along, this image along? The Z. So that represents, or that tells us that we can edit this image along the Z axis without having to wonder and worry about messing up its alignment to all the other photographs within the scene. My trick is just go into the viewport, see which axis is missing from the compass, and that's the axis you get to align or mess with this image without having to worry about messing it up. So I'm going to go back into perspective. I have my front backdrop image selected, and if I grab the move tool, I can move it back along the Z axis and not have to worry about messing it up, and it still looks perfect when we zip over here to the front. All right, let's go to my side view here. Which axis don't we see in the right orthographic perspective? The X. So that's the axis that we get to manipulate this element along. Let's select it. Move it along the X axis, which is the red one. I'm just going to put it way over there. So the front one was we moved it along the Z. We moved the left one along the X. By a process of elimination, which one can we move the top image along? The Y. You got it. All right. And this is kind of the work environment that I really promote people to have. We still want to use those backdrop images. They're a critical, if not mission critical, part of this entire modeling project, but we don't want to have them chilling at the origin. The only thing we want to see at the origin is our model, not our reference. Okay? Makes it easier for our brain to understand and decode what it needs to create. All right, I'm going to go into my viewport properties here real fast, and I want to get rid of a couple things. I don't like the gradient in my background. It just makes it difficult for me to see. My old eyeballs have a hard time seeing my shapes. I'm going to turn my trackball rotation off. Okay. All right, so there's my shape. Let's start making something. At this stage, you need to do this, okay? If you've been following along, save as, okay? This is your name. GCOM 402, lab, alignment, I think that's what it is, or just alignment. Congratulations, you've just finished your lab assignment. Okay, upload it, you're done. Upload it, you're done. The easiest 25 points you will earn all semester, okay? Softball pitch. Softball pitch. Knock it out of the park. Okay, let's start making our model because we have a lot of work left in front of us. Much like last week, we're going to focus on creating the base mesh, and then we're going to go sculpt that base mesh after we're done. Last week, we talked about the detail out method of modeling, where we started with reference, and we modeled, very specific shapes according to the details of our reference. Today, we're going to do kind of a hybrid of our traditional box modeling and that detail out modeling, okay, that detail out method. If we take a step back and critically examine the form of a human character, what basic shape is a human body? It's a series of them, but what basic shape? Cylinders, okay? Zip back over to the front. Look at the human form. If you really think about it, the torso or the trunk of our character is a cylinder, right? our legs, cylinders, our arms, cylinders, our fingers, cylinders. The only thing that's really not a cylinder is your head. Everyone's head is more spherical than cylindrical. Okay? We're going to start with a whole series of cylinders to define the human form initially, and then we're going to edit specific edge loops within those cylinders to capture the details of this human character. Okay? This is a great technique that can be applied to basically any type of humanoid character out there. In many ways, this is the kind of standard organic modeling technique. Doesn't matter if you're doing a panther, a tree frog, a human being, a ninja. You want to start making your character with cylinders. Okay? So let's go ahead and start working with our cylinders. Okay? Now before we jump in, we have to pay some really close attention to how many sides we'll be initially generating our cylinders with. And I want to give you an illustration here as to why this is important. Today, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to be making half of our model. Okay, we're only going to be doing half the work. So we need to pay really close attention to the number of sides our cylinders are created within. And I apologize, that last one is horrendously big. Okay, so here we have 3 different cylinders with 3 different number of sides going around their circumference. Let's look at them real fast. Let's do show vertices. We'll make them real big so you guys can see them. Okay, there we go. All right, check it out. So this guy, it's an 8-sided cylinder. The middle one's 10. The third one is a 12-sided cylinder. What is the common denominator, if you will, between the 8-sided and the 12-sided one? Nathan? Huh? 4 or 2? Yeah, absolutely. So numerically, they're divisible by both 4 and 2. Awesome. Okay. However, visually, look specifically at the pattern of vertices that were created around the circumference of our circle here. On the 8-sided cylinder, we have what I call the poles, the north, south, east, west vertices. Okay? So we have north, south, east, west. These are really cool to have on our model because ultimately what we can craft with those 4 vertices are center lines. We can have a center line going north and south, and then another center line going across our model east and west. Okay? If we compare the 8-sided cylinder to the 10-sided cylinder, we very quickly can see that we have the east and west poles. I can draw a straight line across our mesh perfectly, going east and west. But going north and south, do we have those center points? No, it's flat up there. That's a problem for us. That's a problem when generating organic characters. Okay? Think about it. If this is the trunk of our torso, and let me do this. If this is the trunk of our torso here, our back would flatten off right here. Okay? So if we're looking at our character from the top, we're looking at the shoulders, if you will. Okay? It wouldn't be a circular element, right? It would be circular along the sides and then flat in the center. Well, that's not what the human body looks like. It's also a limiting factor for us when we come to start sculpting more of the details of our body here in a minute. Okay? What we like to have are 8-sided cylinders, or even better, a 12-sided cylinder. I almost always, these are my 2 go-to guys, 8 and 12-sided cylinders, because the 8 and the 12-sided cylinder are going to give us the north, south, east, west. So on the 12-sider, we have north, south, and then there it is, east, west. We still get those poles, and we also still get a little bit more resolution around the circumference of our cylinder to capture more details with vertices. Okay? Pretty rad. We're going to be modeling our character with an 8-sided cylinder. That way, we can slice the mesh right down the center, only work on half the body, and then when we're done, we can mirror that half across the x-axis and get the entire body at the conclusion of the project. Okay? 12-sided cylinder, that's where we want to start. Okay, let me select these 2 guys and delete them. Turn my reference back on. And I need to take that big disk here, and I'm going to rotate it back along the x-axis at a value of -90. So it's facing like that. Okay, let's, with that polygon selected, yeah, go ahead.
How do you work with the symmetry? Like when you have one model on one side and all that?
Yeah, we're not going to do that, but you're more than welcome to explore the symmetry tab. I think that's a little beyond what we're capable of doing at the moment. If you want to work with symmetry, you're more than welcome to enable it up here in the symmetry menu. It's there. However, if your model is not symmetrical to begin with, this ain't going to work. Okay? You have to have a perfectly symmetrical model to work in symmetry, which is why we're really not going to talk about it. Okay. All right. So let's start centering things up here, because I have a little disk. I'm just going to do center selected all, so I know that it's centered perfectly around the origin of my scene. And I'm going to use this big circle here to define the location of the hips. Let's make it a little bit smaller. There we go. Something right about in there. Now, this polygon is going to be the starting point of our entire mesh. What we need to define here is the location of the hips, and then we also need to define the location of the shoulders. We want to start flushing out the overall form of our character first, and then we can go back in with our loop slice command and really getting super specific on the details of the location of the abs, the pectoral muscles, and the shoulder transition areas. Okay? I'm just simply going to extrude this shape along the positive Y. So we'll do a little Shift X action here. Click on the viewport to extrude it. And I want to bring this new shape kind of right up next to the clavicle where your collarbone would be. Now, throughout this entire process, I really encourage you guys to look critically at the edges of our character within the photograph. Where we see massive changes in volume and massive changes in plane are usually that's usually a good indicator as to where we need to have edges. Okay? Yes, sir.
Do you want us to use 8 sides or 12 sides for this?
What's the answer? 12. 12, 12, 12. You can use 8. You're just not going to have enough resolution across your cylinder to capture this body correctly. Okay? You're just going to need a lot of polygons. Okay? 12 is the guy that I would work with. All right. If you look at the way the human body is formed, there's a natural taper that happens as it goes from the hips, which I've defined down here, towards the shoulder. Okay? On the classic male figure, there's that V shape. There's that V shape. Okay? We want to make sure that V shape is very noticeable. So I'm going to increase the size of my shoulders a little bit here by selecting that top polygon and just scaling it up. And I'm scaling it uniformly. And say again? Yeah, absolutely, for sure. And I'll bring it down just to match the location of our reference. And now we're starting to capture that natural V. Okay? Look critically at your reference. It's going to tell you all the proportions that you need to have in order to pull this thing off. Okay? So there it is. There's the foundation for our base mesh. Woo! Yeah, great job, huh? Best model ever. No, not really. We have a lot of work left ahead of us, okay? Now we got to start using the thing between our ears, our eyeballs, and start critically figuring out where we need to place some new edge loops to capture some of those other details. Specifically, the curvature of the side of our torso, where the ab muscles would be, the beginning foundation for the pectoral muscles, and then we're also going to need to start to define some shoulder muscles, but that's going to come a little bit later, all right? Let's just do it real fast. It's a pretty fast process. But there's one technique that I would really love to encourage you guys to follow. We're going to add some geometry with a loop slice, just one edge loop. After we're done adding that geometry, we're going to edit that geometry so our brain understands its role within the model. So I'm going to add some geometry, loop slice, count of 1. And whenever you see a big curve like this, I'm looking at the start of our hips down here. You can see we have a big curve as it goes into that first ab muscle, okay? Whenever we have a curve, we need to define the peak of the curve and the trough of the curve with an edge loop, okay? So I'm pretty close. If you mess up, don't worry. If you mess up the placement of an edge like I have here, don't freak out about it. You don't need to hit undo. You don't need to delete it. You can just, well, you got to be careful when you move it, okay? There's another tool that I love to use called Edge Slide, which is going to slide that loop up and down the existing polygon. Okay? So Edge, and there it is, Slide. And then if you left click and drag, check it out. It just sliding that edge up and down. Big fan. Okay, so I've dropped the tool, and I'm going to make this just a little bit smaller to match the reference. Let's keep going. Yes, ma'am.
How do you get the transparency of your
Great question. So there's two things that we need to do. Melanie's asking, how can I get my polygons on my mesh to be transparent like I have on here? I can see on her screen that they're opaque. There's two things that we need to do. I can see already that your backdrop image has a transparency value of 70% or right around there? Yeah. Right? Okay. So the thing that we need to do, with your cursor in the center of your OpenGL viewport, hit the O key. O is in October. And we need to go into the drawing and control section. And what we're looking to do is activate overlay drawing. And if you go down into the background imagery section, there's also a secondary overlay that we need to turn on. I have no idea. I really don't. This is one of those features that has always really kind of confused me. It used to be just one button, and now they've made it two. And I've learned from working with the Luxology guys that whenever they intelligently design everything. So I'm sure there's a purpose. I'm just not aware of it. So just make sure overlay drawing is active right there and right there. All right, let's keep cruising. Let's keep moving up our body. So I want to do Alt-C once again, and this time I want to place this new edge loop right about there. When I'm done, we're going to get to that. I think you absolutely could. Absolutely could. All right, so I've added in the edge loop. I'm going to scale it down so it matches the outline of our reference. I'm going to keep cruising. I'll put another one over there. The moment I add it in, scale it down, rinse and repeat, going all the way up to the top of our model. Go into edge mode, grab that edge, scale it down. Now I'm scaling it uniformly. That's probably the biggest issue, is that you guys want to scale it disproportionately along one of the axes. Scale it uniformly with that light blue circle in the center of our tool handles. Alt-C, and now I need to make some decisions. I think I'm going to put an edge loop kind of right around in here, I think. There we go. Scale it up. Oh, that's the rotate tool. Scale. Scale it uniformly. There we go. Keep cruising up. Now, I need to begin to define the bottom of our pectoral muscles with an edge. So I'll put another edge kind of right around in there. Scale it up to match the outline, and we're on our way. Now, once we start getting over in here, the taper is going to change a little bit, and I think I'm going to put another one right around in there. And then I'm going to put another edge kind of over in here so I can start to flush out the beginning of our shoulders, okay? Something like that. And I'm just looking at form, okay? And that's pretty close. Let's look at our model in 3D. Yeah, that looks nothing like a human character. Okay, so we have some work that we need to do. So here's the technique. You probably remembered that I did all of this in the front orthographic perspective. I started with the cylinder, I sliced that cylinder to get some more edges, and then I scaled each one of those edge loops to match the reference, right? As soon as we're done doing that in the front, we need to transition over into our side, okay? And then we're going to edit all of the edge loops that we just created from the side perspective. We create something in the front, and then we edit what we just created in the side, okay? Let's jump over to our right orthographic perspective and see what we have. Yeah, looks nothing like our character, right? Well, let's do some work. When we're aligning all of these images, when we're aligning all of these edges within the side, it's a two-step process. The first step is that we're going to move them. We're going to move all of these edges along the z-axis only. We just spent a lot of time moving and scaling edges along the x and the y in the front. So if we move something along the y-axis here in the side, we're going to mess up its orientation on the front, okay? So when we flip over to the side axis, or the side view, we can only move things along one axis. And in our case, it's the Z. So the first thing we're going to do is that we're going to move all of these edges. Once we've moved them, then we're going to scale them. It's a two-step process. Let's start with step number 1. Where are we going to move them? Well, you have to make a decision here. We have to move all of these images, or all these edges, excuse me. I'm doing a middle mouse button marquee selection here, FYI. So that this backmost vertices, so that guy right there, is touching the back of our spine. I have the entire edge loop selected. Fire off the move tool. And I want to move the entire row until that back edge, just the back vert, is touching our spine. Rinse and repeat all the way up our mesh. Move it until the back vert is touching our spine. Now during this stage, if you notice that you need more geometry to define the curvature of your spine, add it. Absolutely. You're in the driver's seat here. This is your model. You need to make sure that you're controlling where all these edges need to go. Like I can see already that I'm going to need to add in another edge here to continue to define the curvature of the spine in between that edge loop and that one. So let's run loop slice. You lost. Okay, what part are you lost at? Okay, let's see what's going on. Let's get everyone on the same page. Where are you lost, Thomas? You just got your side view. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Good. Good. Now, what's it look like from the front? Good. Perfect. Perfect. Okay. Go back to side. Okay. Now we're going to start grabbing each edge loop and we're going to move them.
So these?
Yep. And we're going to move them. Perfect. Rinse and repeat all the way up until each one of these back vertices is touching your spine. Yeah, you got to drop the tool, drop the selection before you move on. How are we doing? Yeah.
I guess I have too many.
Yeah, I would say that you have too many. Well, it's not that you have too many, you just have a lot that you need to edit. Go back to the front for me real fast. Yeah, okay. You need to start aligning these edges to the front first. Okay, yeah. Front, then side. Front, then side. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Yeah, and I would probably add another edge in between here and make it a little bit bigger to capture the continuation of that V shape. And one thing that I would probably do, seeing your mesh a little bit, I would delete all the polygons from that edge down. Just start with the hips. We only want kind of like this section in here.
Okay. So right here?
Yeah, I'd go up one more row. Yep, all of those guys. Get rid of all of those guys, and then start defining it. What in the world are you making? Ah, okay, that's fine. For a second there, I thought you were on a different part of the body. I was like, hold on a second. It's all good. User, that's an awesome building. You gonna do that for your final? Yeah, that's cool. That's a cool one. All right, David, what you got? No, that's fine. Yeah, because we're gonna fix the front part. That's the next step. We're gonna move, and then we're gonna scale. Move and scale. Move and scale. All right. All right, let me catch up with you guys. Do-do-do-do-do. All right. Okay, so if you look at what I have on the screen here, this is what I'm seeing in a lot of different places all around the room, and that's not bad. This is kind of where we want to be, okay? If you look critically, all the back vertices of my cylinder have been aligned to the location of the spine on my reference guy. But yeah, this is probably, this is not so good up here in the front. We need to fix that, okay? This dude needs to go to the gym, okay? He needs to get rid of some of that, okay? So here's the next step. We've moved, and now we need to scale it. How we scale is really important. Okay, check it out. I want to start with the bottom edge here. Fire off the scale tool. Now, I don't want to scale from the center of this edge, right? If we scale from the center, those vertices that we just painstakingly moved to our spine are going to be sucked in to the center of our tool handle. So I need to move my tool handle. I'm simply just going to left click right there on that vertex, and I'm going to try to get it as close as I can to automatically change the location of my action center to that vert, and then I'm going to scale only along the z-axis until that front vert is where it's matching the location of our stomach. Yes, sir? You can do that if you like. Absolutely. 6 to 1, half a dozen to another. Yeah. There are many ways to skin this cat. No, we have to scale. We have to scale in this one. We have to scale. If we were to, well, how would you move your vertices like that? The way I move the edge. If I do that, I'm only allowed to move things along the z-axis, okay? How am I going to, I need to globally change the shape of that circle, okay, of that edge loop, so that the front vertices are at the front of our reference image. Okay, the only way to do it is to scale it. Okay. Otherwise, these vertices are going to disproportionately move in relationship to all the other ones. If we scale it, it's still all the location of all the vertices are still going to match each other, and we'll have a consistent edge loop. Okay. So scale it along the Z. Boom. Okay. Go on to the next one. Scale it along the Z. Moving right along. All right, now once we start getting up towards the center of the torso, we want to start thinking about how we can begin to define the transition into the pectoral muscles. Bum, 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 bum. Just selecting and I'm scaling, selecting and I'm scaling. Huh? Yeah, I think I'm gonna leave it as is, but I definitely want to start capturing the slope of my pecs. Lay the foundation for it now, and then we're good to go. We're just trying to capture the overall shape of our torso. Some of those additional details can be sculpted in and created with some intelligently placed bevels and some new edge loops. Okay. Something that's a little bit more of a challenge when you're working with female characters. That structure or that portion of the torso is a little bit more complex. Okay. All right. Now I'm pretty happy with that. That looks pretty darn good. Okay. I've moved and I scaled. Moved and I scaled. If you look at our shape in 3D, yeah. Now we're starting to look like a human torso, okay? So remember the technique. We scale all of our edge loops from the front along the X and the Y axes. Or you can do them uniformly, that works just fine as well. Once we've scaled all the edge loops from the front, we zip over to the side, and then we move, then we scale along the Z, okay? Let's hit the tab key real fast and see the quality of our work. Yeah, all right, not bad. Not bad at all. I'm liking this. I'm liking this. Okay, at this point, we're going to delete half of our model. Okay, it's always easier to work with cylinders as a complete cylinder initially, and then we can go back and delete them after the fact. It makes working with the tools a little bit more intelligent, a little bit more easy. Okay, so now I'm going to go through and just delete half the model. Something like that. I held down my middle mouse button, and I'm deleting. Okay. Now I don't need or want this polygon up here at the top of our shoulder, so I'm going to delete it. Okay. This polygon at the bottom, however, presents a couple small challenges, and this is the next big issue that we have to mitigate, is the bottom of our character. Okay. There's some important structures that we need to define down here in order for us to model our leg and then hook it into our hip. I think that's probably the best way to describe what we're doing here, is that we're going to create an opening that kind of resembles our hip socket. And then we're going to model our legs separately and then pop them in. We're going to connect them to each other. We're physically going to bridge those two discontiguous shapes with the bridge tool. Okay? Now, if you're working on your project, just pause for a second, because I want everyone to see the structure that I'm about to create. This is an important structure, and it's a little bit confusing because it's just kind of odd. Okay, so just bear with me. All right, we need to transform that bottom polygon. Okay, we're going to create a strip. Ultimately, the end result of this of steps 4, 5, and 6 here is going to be a strip of polygons that connects from our abdomen underneath our body back down to our spine. Okay. The way we can do this easily, and I'm looking for easy here, is to slice up this bottom polygon. So I'm going to go to my mesh edit tools, grab good old edge slice, and I'm going to make a center line. So I'm going to left click, drag. Left click, drag. Okay? Now I no longer need that polygon, so I can delete it. So now we truly only have half our torso now. Okay. In order for us to create that strip that's going to go underneath our model and connect back onto our spine, we need to do one additional edge slice operation. Grab my edge slice tool. I'm going to click in the middle of that edge, drag up, click in the middle of that edge down here, and drag down. Drop the tool, and then in polygonal selection mode, I'm going to select that polygon and hit delete. Okay, there it is. That's the structure, the basic shape of what we're after here. Ultimately, what we're trying to craft, and this is kind of the best way that my brain can consume this. Let's see. My wife's a dancer. Okay, what we're trying to create here is very similar to like a leotard. Okay, if you're a dancer or know that community very carefully. So what we need to do is that we need to continue to define that strip with some additional edges so we can make that curve. Okay. Now, we got to be careful with this. We have to do this a little bit more intelligently. Ultimately, what we're doing here is creating a hole. Okay? We're going to create an opening, a hip socket. We're going to have to connect in a leg with the 12-sided cylinder to that opening. Right now, this opening only has 5 sides, 5 edges on it. So I need a lot of geometry in there. I need a tremendous amount of geometry to get myself up to 12. Okay? At the end of the day, we need to have a 12-sided opening that roughly matches the shape of our hip socket so that we can take a 12-sided cylinder, which is going to be our leg, and connect them to each other. Okay? Yeah. Now, we can do all of this pretty quickly just with edge slice. Okay? And let's just, I like to start in the center. That way, I can just get a good idea. There it is. Select the edge, and I'm going to pull it straight down, okay? I want to start pulling it straight down. All right, good. Good. And now we can just continue going forward with edge slice and slicing this up a little bit, okay? We can take that edge. Let's look at this edge inside reference. And we can begin to move it to match some very important detail on our objects, okay? So I need some more. Here's a great little trick in order for us to get more edges. Just select that edge, bevel it out, okay? You get some more edges. How many do I have now? The opening has 9, so I need some more geometry. We'll start defining where each one of these are going to go. Yeah, I'm just going to define the extents here of this shape. This is going to take some massaging on your side to figure out sculpturally where all these pieces need to go, okay? Because we're going to try to create an opening here. Yeah, that's a great way of doing it, because then you'll get more edge segments. Okay. So now there's edge number 10. I want to add some additional geometry on the back side here.
So we don't have to shape up that bump in front of the...
We're going to get there. Yes, the answer to your question is yes. We are going to do that. Let's just, I think, how many we got? We're at 11 edges now in this opening. So I'm going to put one additional edge segment here in the front, just because that's a rather large polygon. And yeah, that's looking better. With all the geometry in there, we can just go into edge mode and define its placement all along our mesh. Okay? This transition area between our leg, our thigh, and our hip is going to take some work to capture. Okay? This is a section that you will have to go back in and continue to edit after you've done the bridge, because what we don't get here is really great reference for this part of our body. So we're going to have to just look at it critically. Now from the front, we have some additions, some changes that we need to make here, because we're going to ultimately sculpt our entire leg, all of this stuff down here, as a separate cylinder. So we need to lay the foundation for that right now, and I'm just going to go in and just start selecting some of these edges here and move them to our reference, because we want to capture this hip socket. And it goes pretty fast. Oops, excuse me. There we go. And I'm following the lines here. Now for this one, let's do this. I think I'm going to leave it right where it is. However, for these guys, oops, excuse me, for these ones in here, let's look at where we need to place them in alignment with reference. Okay? So I want to follow this curve going this way, and I need the only way to define that curve is by changing the location of some of these vertices. Something like this. There we go. I'm going to be a little initially kind of loosey-goosey on that line, just to make sure that I can connect into it when I get there. We're just trying to create a band. Now you have to look at this band from all three directions now to, we're just trying to get a nice smooth curve. If it gets real angular, if it gets kind of, funky like that, that's gonna produce a weird transition when we connect the leg into the hip. So just look at it from a sculptor's perspective and just try to create some nice smooth transitions. If you do this work now, trust me, it's going to be a whole lot easier in a minute. Okay, and I think I'm going to reduce the thickness of this part. Questions? Okay, I hear rumblings. Where did we get you confused? Yeah, that's a step in the right direction. I'm pleased with that. Okay, so this is ultimately what we're trying to craft here. We're trying to craft an opening, a circle. Okay, if we have a circular opening, we can take our cylinder for our leg, which is a circle, pop it in pretty cleanly, Okay. The thing that you need to manage, and this is something that only you can do, is that you need to make sure that you have 12 edges on that opening or in that opening so that we have the same number of vertices on our hip joint as we do our cylinder. We can connect them together.
So you verticing movement instead of the edge movement?
Yeah. I'm doing a little bit of both here. At times I'm moving edges, but at times I'm also moving vertices. Okay. Organic modeling requires a lot of vert pulling. Good. Yep, you're getting there.
Just pop back.
Just bring it down. You got it. Absolutely. Yeah. What's up? What you got? Yeah. Okay.
But there's something I realized.
Ooh.
There's so that's the top, and then that's the right, and that line is to the nose and
Okay.
the top. But if I unhide the polygons like that's the nose and that's the back. But
Okay.
that's the hands, and it's perfectly aligned with
Yeah.
that. And
Yeah.
That goes to the front.
Welcome to our hell. Yeah, welcome to our hell. Because remember, perspective is always going to change the appearance of all the images within inside the photograph, right? Yeah. What we're not seeing, or what you don't necessarily see in that top photograph, Nathan, is that in the top, our arms aren't like this. Our arms like this.
Yeah.
So that's throwing off the alignment of your reference planes. So we just gotta be close, okay?
Yeah, but that's not close. Like, that's like. And I can't,
That's close enough for me. I would say that's
can't go like,
no, you can't go like that. I would say that's probably close enough for me. That's, to be honest with you, that's within the tolerances that I would look for.
Okay.
Okay, because what we're trying to do when we on the top is define the wingspan, right? The width of our character. Okay, yeah.
Not the.
Yeah, because I think ultimately what we need to do is that if we define the height and the width, the length is going to take care of itself.
Okay.
Okay? And then proportionally we'll know we're there. Looking good, Aaron? Yeah? All right. No, you're doing good. You're doing good. You just need more. Double click on that outside edge for a second. Oops. I'll tell you what. Double click on that one, and that will select the opening. All right, we get 12. We get 12. Zip it over into perspective. Let's see what that looks like. Okay. I think what I would do is that, I see we have two edges that are right close to each other. Mm-hmm. I would start moving all of those around because we don't want a sharp line there, and we don't want a sharp line there, okay? We need to get something that looks like that, all right? A circle. Massaging the location of those edges will start help you creating that circular opening.
All right, so I reduced them, so now.
Good. No, you're on the right track.
All right, so
Yeah,
just
keep going. Keep going all the way up, yeah. How we doing? Good. How many edges do we have? 10. Okay, good. I'd probably add those two new ones down there so we get more geometry to flush out that transition. Dylan, looking good? Good. Eli, looking good, as always. Fantastic. Still beginning. Cool. Gentlemen, how are we doing?
Just laying it out.
Yep, cool. Good. Good, really good, really good. You might want to think about deleting that top polygon. You can see that it's already kind of creating some issues. Oh, what happened to your screen? Uh-oh. Would you mind just opening up an existing window? Or anything. I can see they have a web browser open. Now, can you hide that for me? Hide that window. What if it's just a refresh, kind of redraw issue?
So, what you want me to refresh?
Hide Firefox now. That works too. No, it's still there. Ooh, interesting. That's gonna, okay, fun, awesome. Bummer. Looking good, guys. Still working on your hand. Okay. Yeah.
I know I probably need another loop slice right there. Or
Yeah, I think so. Right.
But I'm supposed to bring it into right here?
Yeah, I think, yeah, right about kind of where that armpit is right there. I think that's probably a good direction to head towards. Mr. Dunn, good. Looking good, man.
So this area is pretty much just working on the butt part. Pretty much.
You got it. You got it. And it's, start it now. Try to get that circular opening. This is going to be an area that you're going to have to go back in and continue to work with. Let's take a look. What you got? Yeah, I think this in here is good. Okay, if you zip back over to the front, yeah, that's good. That's good.
Oh,
That's really good, actually.
So this is good?
This is good. Go to the front.
Okay.
Yeah, we need to kind of define these a little bit. Bring that in.
Okay, so we
Okay.
do treat the crotch as part of the torso.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, you know, the back is something that we're gonna have to look at once we connect the leg in. We're laying the foundation for this section now, but we're gonna have to go back. Yeah, but we're gonna have to go back later and continue to refine it a little bit. Once we have more verts in there, we can continue working on it.
I got left in the dust.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just following along.
Okay. Okay. How we doing?
This is where I left off too.
Okay, good. No, how's it look from the side? You're so close. Good, good. Okay, good. Let's make that band, because you're right there. You're right there.
Which one?
Okay, go back into perspective and zip down to the bottom of your model.
Do you mean like this one?
There it is. Okay. Let's do this. We need to create a band, or delete the left half of your model. Yep. All that stuff. I know we worked hard to make it, but we're going to delete it. There we go. Delete bye-bye. And we can delete that top poly too. Bye-bye. Okay, cool. Now let's go down to the bottom and let's take a look. To create the band that we have on the screen here, we need to bridge that edge to that edge. Yeah. Yep. Bridge it, yeah. Okay, what happened? Okay, let's do this. Let's turn off auto connection and continuous bridge. There we go. That works. Perfect. Great. Okay, so double click on the opening. Oh, you can probably do it in edge mode. It's probably better. Yes, double click on that one. Okay, we have 5 edges. We need to get that up to 12. We need to add 7 more edges along that polygon to form the band that goes underneath our model, and to give us enough edges within the opening so that we can stick a leg in there. Okay? So you can just use the edge slice to create new edge segments, and then move and bring them down and move them into position.
Do I need to take this any lower?
Yeah, I would. I would.
So is this too low?
Nope, that's exactly where it needs to be. Good.
It does have to go down to its jump.
Yes, sir.
How is this?
Good, good. Let's look at it in reference, or the references. Yeah, good, good. I think if anything, these 2 edges in here probably can be brought down a little bit more, because if we look, we're trying to do kind of, yeah. We're close though. Good, good. No, that's real good. Real good, Quinn. Really great. All right.
He said I was supposed to use the light blue one to.
Light blue from the front, right?
I was using the red all this time.
Oh, okay. That's going to give us some challenges. Okay, let's look at your scene from perspective. I think we're okay. I think we're okay. So what we need to do from the side is start moving and scaling, right?
Right.
So move each one so the back vert is on the spine, and then cool trick, move.
Oh, move.
Move.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, right. That's right. I'm trying to get the spine.
The spine. Yep. There you go. Do all of them. So this, that back vert's on the spine. One small thing. Start to taper this edge as it goes down to the bottom here. Okay. Look at the reference from the front. Yeah. This is supposed to taper and come down to a smaller width at the bottom. Mr. Pryor, where you at? Just loop slicing, huh?
Yeah.
I would probably use loop slicing here opposed to just the slice tool. You can use slice, but I think loop slice is going to be a little bit quicker, and the results are going to be a little bit more predictable. All right, how we doing? The loop and slicing? Good. All right, I'm pleased with the progress you guys are making. You're doing some really good things. So I hate to do this, but I'm going to move on. If you're still working on details of your torso, just kind of pause for a second, save your project file, and start watching me do this next step, okay? What we need to do is to define the leg. We're going to use the exact same technique that we used to define the torso to do the leg. So we're going to start with the cylinder. We're going to align that cylinder to the reference, and then we're going to scale from the front, and then we're going to examine our object from the side, and then move and scale, okay? Let's just do it real fast. As always, we need to be mindful of the number of edges that we've crafted in our opening. I have my opening selected. It's got 12 edges. Perfect. Because now I can create a 12-sided cylinder to define my leg. Just want to make sure the sides are set to 12. All right. I'm going to click once, move my cursor away from the tool handles, hold down the Control key, and then left-click and drag to draw out a perfect circle. Now I can start moving and positioning my circle to match the location. Oops. Let's grab that one again. All right, so where are we going to start here? Well, we're going to start kind of in the middle of the thigh.
Can we use the same edge of the opening to make a polygon and create the polygon from that edge and start modeling?
You could. I'm going to show you an easier way of doing it. Okay, we're ultimately going to bridge these two pieces and have the computer automatically create some edges for us. Okay, so I'm going to start kind of in the middle of the thigh. I like that. Okay. There we go. So let's just do the exact same thing that we did for our torso. I'm just going to do a little Shift X to extrude this shape down, and I'm going to bring it all the way down. It looks like I didn't do anything. Shift X. There we go. Now we're extruding. Wait a minute. Sorry, I accidentally hit the wrong key. I swear I need to get a light for up here. Sometimes it's hard to see all the keyboard. 24 vertices? No, I don't want 24. It should be 12. Okay, I'll tell you what. I'm going to start over because I don't know what I did to get all those crazy verts in there. So I'll just do it again. I win. Sometimes it's not about understanding why the tool did whatever it is that it did. You just got to move on. I see people wasting too much time trying to troubleshoot a problem when they should be modeling. Okay, at the end of the day, what's most important is that I have a model. Not a perfect model or that the tool and the application worked precisely the way it should have. I need to make a model. Okay, there we go. I'm happy with that. That's a step in the right direction. Now, I can extrude this shape, Shift X, click, draw down my shape. Okay, so where I'm going with this is down to the ankle. It's down to the ankle. I know it's a little bit difficult to see with my transparency value as is, but there's a cool little arc right around in here that defines the transition between your ankle and your foot. That's where we're going to place this bottom edge. Just going to place it kind of right down over in there. Great. Okay, and now we're just following the exact same technique that we were using before. We're going to generate some loops and then move those new edge segments to match the reference. Okay? There we go. I've added some geometry. Let's scale it down. Scale, and then we'll move it along the X. What I'm trying to do here as I work with the model is that I'm trying to create a center line for my leg. If you look carefully, this is the center point for each one of those loops. I'm trying to get that in the center of my leg as much as I can. Okay. And then we'll continue on, just examining the details. And it looks like I need another loop right around there. Scale it down proportionally using the small circle in the center. And then I'll move it to try to get that new edge loop right in the center of my leg. Dun, da, 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 rinse and repeat. Okay, I'm being a perfectionist here, sorry. Sometimes you can't take the 3D modeler out of a teacher. Coolio. All right, I think I'm going to add another loop in here just so I can continue to define the kneecap with a little bit more information. Now we can take some of these verts in here and move them down to capture the kneecap, but what's most important is the structural elements that we're creating here. Let's just go in and do the calf. I'll let you guys do that on your own. All right. Diddly-doo. Sometimes I wish I had like a video engineer that would play like really cool elevator music while I'm working. Dun 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 dun. I'm just making stuff up here. That was an original. That was a Pat Crandley original right there. I'm dropping my single later on this year. No, I'm not cool enough to have my own single. All right, one more. Okay, that's pretty good. I'm happy with that. There's the shape of my leg from the front. Now let's, yes sir, go ahead.
So, like, you said that middle line there is supposed to be like following the middle of the leg.
Yeah.
So shouldn't some of those edge loops be kind of like twisting a little bit to follow that?
A little bit, and that's something that we can continue to define. Well, maybe. You could if you'd like. You could if you'd like. I'm doing it kind of the middle of our global axes. If you wanted to, you could twist some of those edge loops going down your leg to follow the local middle point of your knee. Okay? I think that's probably a level of detail that we don't want, that's not necessary for the base mesh. Because remember, this is just the base mesh. We're going to go back with our sculpting tools and go crazy with it. Okay? All right. So I'm happy with this from the front. Now we got to go into the side, and yowzas, we have some work. But remember the technique. We move. So pick a side of your leg. I'm going to pick the back side just because it's easier for my brain to see it. I'm going to move all these, and then I'll scale them. If you honor the technique, if you just remember it, just trust the technique, it will be there to help you. I'll make this a little bit easier. All right. There we go. So now, once we've moved, we scale. And like the torso, if you see that you need to add new edge loops to capture details from the reference, do it. You're in control of this. This is your model. Now I'm skipping some things here just because I'm running out of time. I need a couple more edge loops in there to define the kneecap with a little bit more clarity. But I think for right now, this will do. All right, there it is. There's my leg. Looking pretty good. Fancy, fancy. All right, now that we have the leg established, we need to connect the pieces together. In order for us to connect these pieces, I got to delete that top polygon. Don't want that. And shoot, while I'm at it, might as well delete that bottom one at the bottom of the leg. Now we can start connecting the pieces. Okay? To connect the pieces, we're just going to employ the bridge tool. I've selected my hip socket, selected the bottom of my leg, and now I can run bridge. Boom, there it is. Okay? However, let's look at a couple of the bridge settings to control how the computer is creating the shape. Initially, with the segments set to 1, we're just getting a linear bridge. It's a straight line between those two selected pieces, right? However, if we were to increase the segments to like 2, now the computer is going to go in and add an additional edge loop in there for us automatically. Here's kind of maybe what we should have in there is something like this. We're getting some more geometry that we can then go back in and continue to define with some additional edits. Here's kind of a cool trick. With the bridge tool, if you left click and drag with your mouse, you can interactively change the number of segments the bridge tool is going to add into your scene. Pretty cool. Ba-ba-bum. Awesome. I think I'm happy with that. Let's drop the tool, look at reference. Yeah, and we have some changes that we need to make, but we have the geometry there to make them. So specifically, if I go select that edge loop, let's make some changes here. Okay? Now we need to change this a little bit more intelligently. So if I just grab the scale tool and start scaling it like this, yeah, that's never going to give me the level of control that we're after. So we might want to look at a different action center to give us the result that we want. Okay? I want to make this a little bit bigger that way. But really, it's the front that causes a lot of problems. What happens if we were to change our action center to selection? Interesting. Maybe we scale these along like that. We can scale, and then we can move. Yeah, not bad. Same with this one. We scale it down, and then we move it. Okay? Now we're getting something that structurally looks a little bit better. It's going to take some work to get exactly what you want from all angles, but just be patient with the process, and you'll get something that looks good. In addition, you don't necessarily have to affect the entire loop. In certain areas, it might behoove you to just go in and start working with individual edges or individual vertices. Okay? So we can start capturing the information where we need it to be captured. All right. I'm not going to spend too much more time on it as I'm running out of time tonight. Okay? Looking good. Good. We're getting there. We're getting there. Slowly but surely, we're getting there. All right. I've been yakking for about 2 hours. Let's take a break. Okay? Let's take a break. Yeah, what's up? Okay, so here's what I want to do. I want to spend a little bit of time talking about the transition between the leg and the foot. Okay, we have a tough challenge in front of us in that we need to change the flow of polygons as they fall vertically across our mesh. Okay, if you look at the way we've constructed our geometry so far, we've masterfully created a whole series of edge loops that travel in two directions. Okay, we have loops of polygons flowing horizontally across our mesh like that. They flow this way, and I'm just hitting the right arrow key. You can see that all these polygons are flowing down our mesh. Okay, and then we have loops of polygons that run vertically this way, radially across our mesh. This is really, really good loop slice modeling or loop modeling. Okay, we like this. This is good. This is one of the benefits that we gain when when working with cylinders, is that structure is just kind of inherent as part of the actual cylinder itself. Down at the ankles, though, our direction, the direction that all these polygons are flowing, needs to change, right? It needs to change 90 degrees. Everything is flowing down our mesh, okay? And then it needs to make a big 90-degree turn and go towards the toes of our foot. This change in polygonal flow is usually the source of a lot of our troubles in all modeling, not just organic modeling, okay? In my mind, I always think of the polygonal flow on our characters kind of like little water droplets running down a pane of glass. The orientation, the direction that those water droplets are flowing is the polygonal flow, okay? We need to have the path of our water droplets, boom, turn 90 degrees so they can start forming our toes, okay? We have to be very mindful of the structure of our mesh. We don't want to infuse any triangles into the mix here. So we still want to have quads all across the line here. Okay, let's go to our reference and start looking at what we need to do to this transitional element down here at the ankle to define, excuse me, to define this change in pattern. Okay, because I want my polygons to flow down and terminate at the heel, and then I have to have some new ones coming out this way to the left to to flow to our toes. Now, constructing this is not difficult, but it does take a little bit of magic. I'm going to select the back half of my cylinder. Okay, so here's the center point. This is why, another reason why we made a 12-sided cylinder, so we can divide this cylinder into quadrants. I'm taking the back quadrant of my cylinder. There we go. So these, 6 edges? Oops, not that one. So those 6 edges, the back half, and then I'm going to move them up 1. So I'm going to grab those 2. Grand total of 8. So basically, we're leaving the front, 5? 1, 2, 3, front 4 edges unselected. With those guys selected, I'm going to hit the Z key. I love the Z key. The Z, as in zebra or xylophone, is the keyboard shortcut for... There's the keyboard shortcut that's for edge extend. I love edge extend. Edge extend is like the extrude tool, but just for edges. It's going to perform almost identically to our traditional polygonal extrude. So check it out. Hit the Z key. Left click once in our viewport, and you can see the action handles showing up. And I'm just going to drag down on the Y, and you can see what we've created. Awesome. It's a new row of polygons. Okay. It's hollow on the inside, though, so it's, we have to kind of cap it all. Let me grab those bottom ones, and let me just align them to reference now. We're going to form what would be the bottom of the heel. Don't worry about this curve. We're going to come back and define that here in a minute. Okay, we'll get there. What's most important at this stage is to close all the openings, to establish the structure. If we do that correctly, we can go back in and edit that structure to capture some specific details. Okay. All right, so that's the easy part. Now comes the hard part. Now comes the really hard part, where we got to change the flow of our polygons. And it's not too hard. I may be overselling it. But I need to select all of these guys on our ankle. And we're going to perform another edge extend. Now notice that I've selected these 2 vertical companions as well. So I got the 4 untouched edge segments of our original cylinder. and then these two vertical companions. If I activate the Edge Extend tool, I then can bring those new edges forward. And you can already kind of start to see the structure of the foot form in front of us. Okay? Now for our foot, what we want to have here is, well, we don't want to have a curve like that. So let me show you a really cool power user trick. I want to take all of these edges and flatten them so they represent a straight line. If with them still selected, I can fire off the scale tool. Let me turn off my element action center, excuse me. And then I want to scale them back to a value of 0 on the z-axis. Boom. Now it's a straight line. Okay? And let's look at reference. Yeah, we need to fix this. Now for this model, I want you to make just a block foot, something really, really basic. Don't spend a lot of time trying to define each one of the toes. Okay? Block feet, good for me on this our first time out. We're going to make it really easy. What's most important is the structure, not necessarily the amount of detail that we can add. Okay? So there's our foot. I know, it's an awesome looking foot. I want to add one new loop in here, just a little loop slice. There we go. And we'll do the same little trick here. I'll scale those segments back to a value of 0. And now I can look at their position in reference. Yeah, I think I'm just going to grab these guys, bring them down to something right around there. Now I got a little bit of a twist in there, but I can resolve that in a minute. That's okay. All right. So the challenge, that was not so bad. That's not so bad. Let me do it one more time. Let's go back. Hit undo here. Whoa. There we go. All right. So this is the challenging bit. Okay. Let me almost. There we go. All right. So I've selected those 7 edge segments. Okay. The back half of my cylinder plus 1 on either side. Okay. And I'm going to use the Edge Extend, the Z key, and just bring those down like that. As you can see, we've created a new row of polygons. I'll go back into Edge mode, and I'm going to select the 4 untouched cylindrical edges, and then their 2 vertical friends, and then do another Edge Extend. But this time, I'm going to change the polygonal flow and bring them out like that. Okay, we still have all quad polygons across the entirety of our mesh, and everything is flowing the way we need it to flow. You scale these back to a value of 0% along the z-axis. And let's look at where we need. Hey, I got lucky on that bottom row. I was just kind of eyeballing it for those, but we're right there. These, however, need to be brought down. And maybe we'll position these somewhere right around in there. I know it looks kind of funky, but that's okay. So there it is. There's our foot. Woo! Great foot. However, we can't have an opening like that on the bottom of our foot, so we need to close this up. This is the trick. This is truly the tricky part, and you're going to see this all over the 3D modeling art form itself. And let's just talk about some ideas. Let's do the easy bits first, because sometimes doing the easy bits yield us the answer to the hard bits. So I know I can maybe bridge those. Oops, let's turn off auto connection. Okay, I can bridge those. Shoot, if I can bridge that edge and that edge, what's stopping me from doing these in here? Let's bridge them. Fantastic. Now we want to stop when we get to a 5-sided opening like we have here in the heel. Because if you remember back to our hand, this gives us an opportunity to create a center line. Okay? To change the orientation, or excuse me, to change the flow of our polygons within the surface. I want to fill it with the polygon by hitting the P key. Herein lies another reason why we generated the shape with a 12-sided cylinder. Because we have center lines on all 4 sides of our cylinder, we can connect those center lines with an edge. Okay? Ideally, what I want to do is use edge slice to go from there down the center of our foot and to connect to that vert right there, which is going to ultimately connect into the center line of our entire model. Okay? Let's just do it real fast. Shoot, while we're at it, let's just fill this opening here with a polygon. Hit the P key, and let's do the hard work. Okay. Use edge slice, and I'm just going to draw an edge. connecting all these things together. And eventually, we'll get to the front, do something like that. Okay, so if your P key isn't working or isn't giving you the result that you want, make sure you flip around to the other side of that polygon. The P key may have done its job. The surface direction of that polygon may just be flipped. Okay? Okay, so looking pretty good. But we have some n-gons here. We have that n-gon and that n-gon. We need to resolve those n-gons. Okay? Now for us, it's not so bad. Not so bad, because we can very easily resolve that n-gon with some creative slicing. I need to send this edge, or excuse me, that vert somewhere. I want to use edge slice here, and check this action out. If I slice there, go down, and now I'm going to go back this way. And instead of terminating at like there or terminating here, which would infuse triangles, check it out. What I'm going to do is something like this. I'm going to go there, and then I'm going to cut across. Yeah, what just happened? Let me show you. We're going to curve that new loop going around the bottom of our foot. And what we're doing here is that we're basically connecting that edge loop to its friend on the opposite side of my foot. Now, if you're following along, you probably said, Pat, that was awesome. However, we just created 2 new n-gons. And go to the corners. You're absolutely right. So we can just do edge slice there, and now we can go right there. It's all quad polygons still, and we've controlled the loop, something like that. There it is. Pretty great. Hit the tab key, looking pretty good. Okay. Yeah. Let's add a couple more loops in here, and we're on our way. Okay. So let me do that one more time so everyone can see exactly what I just did. Let's review it. Okay. Slicing up the bottom of the foot is the most challenging bit in this entire sequence. Okay. Because it requires us to change the flow of all of our polygons and to generate a new custom loop. Ideally, what I'm trying to create here is an edge loop that starts at that vert, wraps all the way down underneath the bottom of our foot, around the back of our heel, and it will connect to that one right there. So let's do this with edge slice. I want to start, boom, there. I want to work my way down. Work my way around. And instead of terminating at one of these points in here, I'm going to do this. I'm going to terminate it in the center of that polygon, then go this way. And then we'll just keep cruising up the back here until we get to the front of the foot where the toes would be. We can connect it back to its friend over there. We're not done yet, because now we have to go back in and resolve that n-gon, this one right there. Okay. But luckily for us, edge slice is our jam. We can just slice the corners. Hold down Shift, slice the corners, going that way. And that's ultimately the type of construction structure that we need. Now, I know you guys have questions on that. Yeah. Huh? You know, we're not going to do the toes. We're not going to do the toes. Okay? If you want to do the toes, go ahead and do the toes, but only do 4 toes. You're allowed to make a four-toed creature. Okay? Adding that 5th toe in there isn't impossible, but we just don't have enough resolution right now to do it cleanly. Okay? We would have to increase the number of polygons on our cylinder up to like 16 to get what we want. And for our first time out, I don't want that to be our focus. What's most important on this project isn't necessarily all the details of our mesh, but it's just the structure of our mesh. That's the most important bit. Yeah. So to get the heel, I mean, we have some geometry that we can add in here at the heel. Since it's all quad polygons, let's just uniformly slice that. There we go. And now, from the side, I can grab some of these edges, and maybe I scale them from that point right there to capture the size, the shape of our heel. Say again? I only did the one side. Oh, I did a middle mouse button select on that one. Is that what we were talking about, Nathan? Yeah. If you do a middle mouse button marquee selection, it selects through the entire mesh. Yep. Looking pretty good. Okay. Bum, 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 bum. We're getting there. We're getting there. Slowly but surely. A couple other things that you might want to consider doing for your heel is going into vert mode and moving some of these verts down to capture that little knobby thing at the bottom of your heel. I guess what would be the ankle bone itself. Okay. Huh? The head. So now that we have the bottom half of our body done, let's start talking about the top half of our body, because there are some challenges in front of you when it comes to the top half of your body. Okay. The arm. Let's talk about the arm first, because the arm is not as bad as one might imagine it would be. What shape is your arm? Cylinder. Okay. You're going to use the exact same technique for the arm as we employed for our leg. Start with the cylinder, add edges in there, add edge loops, to capture the detail of the arm, and then we're going to connect it to an opening. When you're connecting or when you're creating your opening for your arm, there are a couple considerations to keep in mind. We want to make sure that up here in the shoulder, we're kind of doing something like right around in here. Yeah, not so bad. Not so bad. We may even want to do like a 2x3 opening. Let's look at what this, yeah, that's actually pretty good. Okay, for my mesh, I've selected a 2x3 opening. Yours, it might be different depending on how much resolution's on your geometry. I think the visual landmarks that you want to try to capture here is we're just trying to make like an opening for the armpit. The top of our shoulder is going to be created from that unselected loop of polygons on the top of our cylinder. So kind of this in here, okay? Let me show you. So we're just going to create an opening by deleting. Let's count how many edges we have. We have 10. So I would probably go and look to add 2 more edge loops along that cylinder to get me to 12, okay? We absolutely want to have 12 in here. So there's a couple places that we can add an edge loop quickly to get what we want, okay? Don't add edges here. Why not? Or here. We already have edges there, okay? Some people, they say, oh, Pat, why don't I just do this? To get me to 12, I'll do this. No. No. It's going to mess up the bridge operation, okay? We want to keep our poles in here, all right? We want to keep our poles. We need 2 more poles. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right, okay? Yeah. So there's the 10 edges. What we really want to have are, like you said, east and west poles. So maybe we did a loop slice in here. And what I'm looking at isn't so much the placement of this vert along the reference. I'm looking at the placement of that vert along the opening. Shoot, let's do this. Instead of doing loop slice, I'm just going to do slice. That way I can do the front and the back at the exact same time. And let me show you my kung fu here. You're probably saying, Pat, this is stupid. But let me show you what I'm talking about. I'm looking to see, I'm trying to place the poles here, or the east and west, in the center of my opening. Okay? As is, now I got 12, but it's not exactly the 12 that I probably want. Okay? Because I really would love to have that vert be a little bit more uniformly spaced. So let's do a little edge slide, okay? We want to try to get all of these verts in here as uniformly spaced out as we can. Remember our hard surface modeling technique when using sub Ds, okay? the closer 3 edge loops are together, the more likely you are to grab a pinch. So by spreading them out, the chances of a pinch go down. Okay, that's a good opening. Clearly, I need to sculpt it a little bit more and make it circular, but geometrically, that's a step in the right direction. Okay. If we look at our reference, oops, wrong one. We're getting there. Okay, we're getting there. I probably want to bring some of these down now and start defining these a little bit differently. Okay, like this one in here probably can start to form the top of my shoulder. I may even want to add in a new edge loop up at the top so that I can start to scale this where I want it to go. Okay. Now that is way, way out there. And this is where you need to start using your eyeballs, okay? The top of the shoulder isn't going to look anything quite that extreme. So maybe something like that. All right. Now, a couple suggestions on the arm. Let's look at our top. Yeah, we're way off of our geometry, our reference at the top. The top reference is always going to be confusing to you because we're seeing, it's really easy for you to get confused with the landmarks, right? Because we're seeing the top of the shoulders, we're seeing part of the belly, and we're seeing part of the toes all at the exact same time in this image, okay? Use it as a general guide for a lot of these edges, okay? I am, yeah. I don't have a polygon right here. Okay, but that's okay. That's okay. All right, so for the arm, let's just talk real fast about the arm. Whoops. The arm, here's my suggestion to you as you make your arm, okay? 12-sided cylinder, just like all the others, right? What's most important initially is establishing the angle of your arm. Establish that angle. That's the tricky bit. Because we want to have all of the edge loops flowing down our arm be perpendicular to the slope of our arm. Okay? What we don't want to have, what we're trying to avoid here are slices that look like that. Okay? What we want to have are slices and edge segments that look like that run perpendicular to the slope of the arm. Okay? You're going to capture that slope first. And then you can use loop slice to begin your edit operation. Now remember, you got to do this from a couple different angles. Okay? This is going to take some massaging. Yeah, and I'm pretty close. Okay? Get that arm angle first, and then you can add those edge loops to define the details of your arm. And then, once it's all kind of dialed, select the opening, select the arm, and you guessed it, we're just going to bridge it. Okay? Now, that's going to need some work, but we're starting to establish the foundation for that. Okay? Starting to see why characters is so hard? Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna let you continue working on this, but we're gonna skip ahead for a second. For your hand, same kind of thing goes. Same general rule for your feet is applied to your hands. I'm very, very okay with simple hands. You cannot use the hand that you made last week on this model. Okay, and here's why. Geometrically, it's just not gonna work. Okay, geometrically, there's way too many polygons, right? Geometrically, there's like 2 million polygons on that sculpted hand, okay? At the end of the day, we want this to be one connected piece, one contiguous polygon, okay? So you can't use the hand that you made last week. However, you can use those ideas. Blocky hands are fine. Blocky hands are fine. It just has to be all connected, okay? Okay. At this stage, I usually start mirroring my geometry, okay? Because I only have half my body. I want to have the entirety of my body now. Okay. So let's explore how we can make that. There's one important idea that we need to have completely dialed before we can mirror the geometry across our x-axis, and those are the border vertices. The verts that run right down the center line of our torso need to be precisely at the center of our x-axis. Does anyone remember a tool that will allow us to do this? Set position. One of my faves. It's one of my faves. I like being able to control it numerically. So I'm going to go into my vertex selection mode. And I'm going to hold down my middle mouse button so I can select through my mesh. And I'm going to very carefully select just the border verts. And then I'm going to double check. Double check to make sure you got everything, because you really only want to do this once. And I'm happy with that, so I'll go to my vertex set of tools, set position, put the value to 0 along the x-axis, and hit OK. Now, if you've done a good job, you shouldn't see anything move. If those vertices move like a couple feet, you need to move your model closer to the center of the x-axis. Okay? You are way off axis if those move significantly. Okay? They should move like but a hair's width, seemingly, within your scene. Okay? All right. Now that I have confidence that all my border verts are in the dead center of our x-axis, I can do the mirror operation. So if I go to my duplication tools, I can select mirror, but before I click, I want to use the origin of my scene to determine the location of all of my action handles. So I'll go to my Action Center pull-down menu, choose origin. Now I can clicky-click. Click on the left side of my screen, and there it is. Before you drop the tool, I want to make sure in our tool options that merge vertices is turned on. That way it automatically welds and joins the verts that are right on top of each other on the center of the x-axis. At the end of this operation, we should be able to drop the tool, go into my polygonal selection menu, and then double click on the mesh to confirm that it's all one piece. Okay? Now I'm going to hit the tab key. My arms look a little silly, but my body's looking pretty good. My body's looking pretty good. I'm happy with the results that I've gotten. Okay? This is a good start. Is it perfect? No. It's not perfect. There's still a lot of stuff that we need to go back in and clean up and continue to refine. But as a beginning, this ain't so bad. Okay? Look at it in reflection. This is not that bad. Not that bad. It's actually pretty good. It actually looks like a character. Okay? Except for his arms. The arms look kind of silly, but he's got like piston arms. Anyways, okay. He's like Wreck-It Ralph. Big arms. Did you guys ever see that movie? I loved Wreck-It Ralph. I love Wreck-It Ralph. Anyways, okay. Let's talk about the head. The head is going to be where you're going to have the most problems. Okay. The head requires a challenging transition. Okay, it's tough because if you think about it, we have to create, connect a sphere into a whole series of cylinders. The first thing that you want to do when you're defining the head is get the neck kind of dialed in. Okay, that's the easy part of this entire process. Okay, so I already have my shape mirrored, so I can continue using. Maybe I just I fill that selection with the polygon. Let's change my shading type back to Advanced OpenGL. And then I can just use my straight up traditional polygonal bevel to continue working and continue defining what this shape needs to be. Okay? All right. However, when you're using these insets, that turns into a problem, right? Big problem. Humongoid problem. Okay? A couple things that you can do here. Don't use the bevel tool. Okay? Not using the bevel tool would be a step in the right direction. Here's one other alternative, and I wanted to show you guys this. You can use Edge Extend. Edge Extend is actually a really powerful tool because it allows us to draw up. But check it out. Over here, a lot of folks forget that we have some options that will change the behavior of Edge Extend. Under this planar section, we can add in some coplanar handles that will allow us to change how we're transforming this new edge loop. I want to change mine to scale, and now my tool handles have these really groovy coplanar handles, and what we're talking about are these guys. These are not move coplanar handles, they're scale coplanar handles. So, check it out. I can scale it now, and that's working a little bit better. Yeah. Let's do something right around in there. Happy with that. Let's confirm it from the side. Yeah, so I have some work in here that I have to do from the side. Let's just use my standard modeling technique. Move it to the back, scale it along the z-axis, and we're on our way. All right, so there's also a couple things in here that we probably want to look at. If you look carefully at the angle of our neck, we might want to start doing something like this. That way, just rotating that edge down. When I extrude out that edge, it's already going to match the angle of our neck. Okay?
What about that curvature in the inside? So to extrude, because it has that curvature.
Yeah, that's something we can block out with some new edges. All right, that's good. That's a good start. Use edge extend one more time. And before we go any further, I want to flatten these edges out. Scale it down to a value of 0 on the y. I hit edge extend twice. There we go. Cool. All right, and let's see what we can do here with this piece. Let's move it forward, and I'm also going to rotate it down. Oops. Might help if I grab the rotation tool. Let's change my action center to selection so I can move and scale this locally. Yeah. Let's scale this in from the front. All right, there we go. There's the foundation for my neck. This is where it gets crazy, okay? So what I would like you to do and what I would like you to focus on is just establishing the overall form of the head. Do not, please do not try to go in and do like the eyes and the ears and the nose. Just capture the overall form of the head for our first time out, okay? If you try to go in and start doing the ears and the nose and all the mouth and all that stuff, you're on your own, okay? You have gone Ronin on me, okay? And it gets logarithmically more difficult to capture those details with this structure, okay? Not impossible, it's just much more, I mean, literally I could spend three or 4 weeks just talking about how to model the head, okay? However, we can block it out. We can block it out, okay? If you think about it, what we have here is a 12-sided opening, right? 12 sides. Our head, for the most part, is a 12-sided or a sphere, right? So what if we take that idea and draw some inspiration from it, okay? What if we take a 12-sided sphere and put it into our scene? I'm going to go into sphere, and we just want to make sure that on our sphere, the sides and segments is 12 by 12, okay? All right, and now I can left-click and drag inside of my scene. Let's do this, and I can actually start to sculpt the overall proportions of this as I'm drawing it out. Now I'm looking at overall proportions. I'm not looking at specific features. Just trying to capture some basic stuff. Yeah, that's good. That's real good. Okay. Huh? Basic geometry of it. So basic shape. Before we connect these pieces to each other, you know, if you wanted to, you could go in and start defining some details. Okay. There's nothing wrong with going. Now I have this thing as subdivided. Hit the tab key. There we go. There's nothing wrong with going in and start doing something like this, kind of practicing that same technique that we did for our arms and our legs. Okay. You will get to a point, however, that this is only going to yield you a certain result. There we go. And I'm going to go back in and scale these back along the z-axis. Oh, my action center is set to selection. Something kind of like that. Now, we're going to get down to the base of the spine here, and you have to start making some decisions, okay? Because we need to figure out where this geometry is going to transition into the neck itself. So you have to make some pretty big decisions. I think I'm going to have this be my final row in my head, okay? Yeah, so let's just get the pieces connected first, and then we can see those other details start to unfold in front of us, okay? All of this stuff down in here, that loop, and then of course this loop in here, the pole at the bottom of the neck needs to be removed. Just delete it. And now, if let's count the edges. 12, 12, we can connect them together, okay? It's going to look kind of funky for a bit. We can bridge them, and there we go. Let's look at it from the side. Doesn't quite capture the detail that we're after. However, we can go in. There's nothing stopping us from changing some of the locations of these pieces, okay? Let's look at our scene from the front. It's going to look kind of funky. Yeah, it's going to look very funky, but that's okay. This is our first time out. It's our first time out, okay? And there's our head. Kind of looks like a little duck man. Okay? There's our head. It's not necessarily a bad thing to have it all terminating up here at the top. I encourage you to continue looking at this from a number of different perspectives. Okay? Let's do this. I'm going to get crazy here. Whenever you're making changes to your mesh, make them globally. Yeah. Now, I edited a lot of these edge segments from the front, or from the side along the z-axis. So if I do it from the x, I shouldn't be messing anything up. Nope, I'm still pretty good. And this is where it's going to look kind of funky, okay? Actually, this is where it's going to let me unsubdivide it. That will help. Haha. It's probably a good idea never to work subdivided. Maybe what I do is I define this without really thinking about the ears. Just looking at the proportions of the head and the face. This is where the jawline and the mandible are going to come back down. There we go. We can start to see some of those basic forms appear in front of us. Now, if you really wanted to go crazy, and I'm saying if you really, really, really wanted to go crazy, you probably can start figuring out how we can connect some of these other pieces of geometry to get the illusions that we want. Okay? Like, for example, let's find out where the ears would be. Now, we physically don't have enough geometry over here to define the ears. If I scale these from over here, yeah, I don't have enough geometry. I don't have enough resolution to get what I'm after. So that's kind of as far as I would like you guys to go for this first week. Okay, just get it connected. Just get it connected, because if you have quad polygons across the entirety of your mesh, we can go back with our sculpting tools and have some fun. Okay. All right. One final thing, and I know I've hit you guys with a lot of stuff today. But the foundation of this entire project is quad polygons. If we have quad polygons across the entirety of our surface, we get access to our sculpting tools. Now, last week, how was it when you were working with 2 million polygons? Yeah, not so good, right? Not so good at all, okay? It was important that you had that experience. In many ways, it's the wrong way to sculpt, okay? We don't want to sculpt with 2 million polygons, because what if we need to make a major structural change? What if we want to animate that thing or apply a certain effect to it and continue using it inside of our Modo system? Working with a 2 million polygon hand is going to bog down our machine at every single level, okay? I want to introduce a new idea to you this week, a new feature of the sculpting system that will allow us to get the quality that we want, but also preserve all of the performance, okay? It's going to give us flexibility, and that's the most important part, because what you guys haven't been exposed to yet in this class is the animation pipeline. You haven't been exposed to the rigging pipeline and dynamics and effects. There's a lot of stuff that comes after this course that's going to demand a lot of performance out of our application. If we're working with really geometrically heavy objects, we're not working in an efficient pipeline. We're also not working in a pipeline that's editable, right? If we wanted to make a major structural change to a hand that has 2 million polygons on it, it's always going to look bad, right? It's always going to look bad. Thus enter the role of multi-resolution sculpting. Multi-resolution sculpting allows us to get the high resolution detail that we were able to achieve last week with 2 million polygons, right? But it gives us the flexibility to increase and decrease the amount of geometry on our object at any time. It's really cool. There is this is something that comes directly from the technology exchange between Luxology and Pixar. So these are Pixar sub-Ds. If you've been following our industry pretty closely, that's gotten a lot of press in the past years. The open subdiv movement has made its home here into Modo, and it's awesome. And it's come in through a series of technology called multi-resolution. So clearly my little dude here requires a lot of love. Let me go into my Paint tab, and we're going to start working with our sculpting engine, okay? And I want to turn off my grid, my backdrops, and just see my character, okay? All right, if I'm in my sculpting tools, if I grab the push tool, notice down here in my sculpting HUD, it says multi-resolution off. I want us to turn this on. Now, this is a point of no return, okay? The moment we turn this on, we're physically transforming our mesh into a subdivision surface, okay? It's a point of no return, okay? So we got to be careful with this. We got to be careful with this, but it's a point that we don't want to come back from. So this is a good thing, because what we gain is a lot of awesomeness, okay? We're going to turn on multi-resolution sculpting, okay? And you can find the toggle for that over in your toolbar. If we turn it on, now we should get a pop-up. It's going to say, hey, this requires us to transform this mesh into a Catmull-Clark subdivision surface. Do you want to do this? Yeah, I want to do this, okay? Now on the surface, it doesn't look like anything's changed. It still looks like a subdivision surface. It's all been smoothed out. But underneath the hood, we're using a different algorithm now. Luxology created their own algorithm for smoothing. When we hit multi-resolution, we're using a different algorithm. We're using the Pixar algorithm. The president of Pixar is a guy named Ed Catmull. He is the grandfather of all things computer graphics. This dude invented texture mapping, okay? I mean, he came up with the stuff that we use every single day, and he's one of the founding members of Pixar. He came up with this algorithm. That's why it's called the Catmull algorithm, the Catmull-Clark algorithm, okay? And it's awesome. What this allows us to do is to work inside a subdivision environment, but increase the subdivision rate non-destructively. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Right now, we're at the multi-resolution level of 2, the subdivision level of 2. With that, we have generated 29,000 polygons within inside of our scene. Okay. At this level, we're only going to be able to achieve a sculpting, amount of detail that's close to 29,000 polygons. So I can still use my push and my pull tool and go crazy here. Okay. Now I'm live streaming and trying to sculpt at the exact same time, so it's not exactly a good thing. Okay. Which is why my performance is just really horrible at the moment, and I'm doodling. I'm not trying to actually make a character. This is like, a mutant warrior or something. I don't know. Okay. This is like the Toxic Avenger over here, right? Okay, so I'm still getting a really nice performance, but what if I wanted to go in and really start adding a tremendous amount of detail? Last week, what keyboard shortcut did we hit to logarithmically add more polygons? D key. We're never hitting the D key again, because that's a destructive edit. We can't go back from the D key, okay? This is non-destructive. If I want more polygons, I just need to increase my maximum level. It's going to subdivide my mesh on the back end, and it's going to give me more geometry. So let's change my maximum level from 2 to 3. Now check it out. Now I don't have 29,000 polygons on my mesh. I have 119. It doesn't show 119,000 polygons. Okay, we don't actually see the subdivisions like we did last week, where we're seeing more polygons. It's doing it behind the scenes. Graphics library, I think. I think OpenGL is a graphics library. Graphics language. It's one of the two. Yeah. Correct. Correct. What we're showing here is, we're in an advanced OpenGL rendered window. So the advanced OpenGL library, that language, is registering 119,000 polygons. Okay. All right. So now at this level of detail, I can go in and really start to push and pull much finer stuff. Okay. I can go in with a smaller brush now. Oh, too small. Smaller brush and get a lot of detail. Maybe I go down to in here with, let's do this. Let's grab my carve tool. I can go in and carve things out. Okay, pretty cool. This we know, but we're not destructively adding any more geometry. Let's just go to the highest level of this. Let's go to like a level of 3. And I'm probably going to break my computer, but that's okay. Now I'm at 500,000 polygons. Let's go to max level of 5. Watch the number. It's thinking about it. It's thinking about it. It's thinking about it. My computer's thinking about it. I may have broken it. Nope. Now I'm at 1.9 million polygons, and I'm not going to go any higher than that. Okay. I'm at 1.9 million polygons within my mesh. Now I can go in and truly start sculpting at a much, much, much higher level of detail. Maybe I want my toxic Avenger guy here to have a brick pattern on his back. I don't know why. Whoa. There we go. There we go. Okay, now that's actual sculpted geometry. That's not a texture. That's true deformation of our geometry. Okay, pretty cool. So you're probably saying to yourself, okay, Pat, this is rad, but this is exactly what we had last week until I start walking down the steps. What if I wanted to change my overall shape? What if I wanted to change the proportions of my character? At the highest level, I got 1.9 million polygons to work with, okay? Go to the lowest level. Right, I can go back down to level 1, make that broad brushstroke change. Go back down to level 1. Okay, now, what's gone? The bricks. Is it really gone? No, it's not really gone. We're just not viewing that level of information right now. And now, the OpenGL engine's only reading 7,400 polygons. I can go back in with like my move brush, for example. And I don't want that tip anymore. I just want a standard move brush. Okay, so maybe I will move it with a brick pattern. Image ink isn't dropping. Hold on a sec. Let me grab the correct nozzle, that's why. So I can maybe not do anything. It's probably because I'm live streaming all this. And it's not working because look, I have a polygon selected. Whatever's selected is going to be edited, right? So that was the only polygon I was trying to move. Let me drop the selection, drop the tool, grab the push tool once again. Yeah. Now I can make big sculptural changes. Remember, I have a brick pattern on my back, right? Remember that. Brick pattern on my back, brick pattern on my back. I've just structurally made a big change to my mesh, okay? If I drop the tool, and let's go back to my, let's sculpting HUD, please, and I'll go back to level 5. Give the computer a second to think about it. There's my brick pattern, okay? The multi-resolution stuff allows us to sculpt at an incredibly high amount of detail and then step down to a lower amount of detail to animate, to continue texturing, to do all of our UVing, and generally increase our performance, okay? We can even set it up in a way that we can automatically have the computer render at the highest resolution at render. It may have. It may have. I don't know. I don't know. Yes, exactly. 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 We want to be able to go in and sculpt high amount of detail on our mesh, but there are times within our production pipeline where we don't want to have to handle that amount of geometry. Okay? This is a non-destructive way of working. Right now, I got 1.9 million polygons on this mesh. Changing the resolution back down to stage 1. Now I'm only working with 7,500. I'm free to animate. And then it's got to bump it back up to 5 when I'm done, and I'm ready to render. Non-destructive way of sculpting. It is awesome. Okay? All the sculpting tools work identically to the way we discussed last week. The only thing that's different is jumping up and down through your current level. Okay? Questions on that? I mentioned earlier that this was a point of no return. Okay, let's drop the tool for a second, and let's hit the tab key. Okay, there are displacements on this mesh. Do you really want to convert it? If you hit yes, all that lovely sculpting detail that we just infused, gone. Okay, so this is the point of no return. Multi-resolution mesh sculpting is really something that we only want to do on organic objects, okay? Because if I hit yes, it's going to go back to my standard polygonal cage. And if I was to do like Shift Tab again, or Tab, thinking about it, it's thinking about it, it's thinking about it. Okay, now check it out. I'm on the max level of 5, right? I got 1.9 million polygons within my scene, yet I'm not seeing any of that awesome detail that I just sculpted in, okay? So this is the point of no return. Once you enable multi-resolution sculpting, that object is a subdivision surface for the entirety of its life, okay? So just be careful. Be careful, okay? Yes, sir?
Does that mean if you go back into the modeling tab, it's going to be subdivision surface
Forever. Yeah.
So, would it be a good idea to make a project? Go back and point.
Yeah, I mean, if you need to. It's always a good idea to double up, back up your project file. Okay? So your assignment this week is to model your human character. Okay? Keep it low res. Don't try to go for the brass ring and try to do everything. Okay? Don't try to add a lot of detail in the face. And just manage the loops, bridge everything together, use those cylinders because that will give you the structural elements that you need to pop everything into the torso. And just take it one edge loop at a time. All right? Questions? And then watch the live stream about 1,000 times. You'll be all right. In addition, final project. Start thinking about ideas. Okay, start thinking about ideas. The moment you come back from your holiday break next week, we're in final project mode the rest of the time. Have a good Thanksgiving, guys. We'll see you in a couple weeks.